We are often told that grief is a mountain we must climb, a heavy burden we must carry until we reach the other side. We speak of getting over it or moving on, as if grief were a temporary sickness that we need to recover from. But for anyone who has stood in the wreckage of a shattered life, these words feel hollow when you lose someone you love, a dream you cherished, or even a version of yourself that you relied on. You don't just feel sad, you feel lost. It feels as though the map of your world has been burned, leaving you standing in a landscape with no landmarks and no direction. In the ancient practice of alchemy, the goal was to turn lead, the densest, dullest metal, into gold. This wasn't just a physical pursuit. It was a spiritual metaphor for the human condition. The alchemy of grief is the process of taking the heavy, cold lead of loss and transforming it into something radiant, a compass for the soul. This is not about forgetting the pain. It is about using the pain to find a truer north. Consider the story of a man named Leo. Leo was a man of great ambition. His entire identity was built on his career, his status, and his ability to provide. He lived in the future, always planning the next move. Then, in a single year, everything collapsed. A health crisis ended his career, and the sudden loss of his father left him emotionally paralyzed. Leo found himself in a state of silence that he had never, but it wasn't the silence of peace. It was the silence of a void. He felt that without his titles and his roles, he was nothing. He was a traveler who had lost his compass. For months, Leo tried to fight the grief. He used discipline in the wrong way, forcing himself to be productive, trying to outrun the sadness with busy work. But grief is a shadow that grows longer the faster you run from it. The more he resisted, the more the lead of his loss weighed him down. He became bitter and disconnected. He was alive, but he wasn't living. One afternoon, Leo sat by a lake, exhausted from the struggle. He stopped running and decided to practice a moment of Zen acceptance. He stopped asking, "How do I fix this?" and started asking, "What is this feeling telling me?" He realized that his grief was not just about what he had lost. It was about what he had valued. His pain over his career was actually a sign of his deep need for purpose. His pain over his father was a sign of his deep capacity. This was the moment of alchemy. Leo realized that his grief was a mirror. It was showing him the parts of his soul that were most alive. He began to practice stoicism, recognizing the dichotomy of control. He could not control the loss of his health or the death of his father. Those things were gone, but he had total control over the meaning he assigned to them. He realized that the lead of his grief was actually the most honest thing he had ever felt. It had stripped away all the shallow distractions of his former life. As he embraced the silence, a new direction emerged. He realized that for years he had been chasing things that didn't actually matter to him. He had been using an old map. His grief was the fire that burned the old map so that he could finally see the terrain of his true self. He started to use his loss as a navigation tool. He began to volunteer at a local hospice, using his own experience of fragility to comfort others. He found that his capacity for empathy was a gold he never knew he possessed. Grief, when integrated, becomes a compass because it clarifies your values. It tells you with brutal honesty what is worth your time and what is not. When you have looked into the abyss of loss, you no longer care about petty grievances or shallow status symbols. You become lighter. This is the ultimate letting go. You let go of the person you thought you had to be, and you step into the person your soul actually is. To practice the alchemy of grief, you must be willing to stay in the dark for a while. You must sit with the lead. Do not try to rush the process. Healing is not a linear path. It is a spiral. Some days the compass will point toward sadness, and that is okay. On those days, the compass is telling you to rest, to reflect, and to honor what was lost. Other days, the compass will point toward a new passion, a new connection, or a deep sense of gratitude for the life that remains. The shadow explorer knows that the most profound growth happens in the dark. Your loss has not made you empty. It has made you spacious. It has carved out a room in your heart that can now hold more truth, more compassion, and more wisdom. You are not the same person you were before the loss, and you shouldn't try to be. You are someone new, someone who has been refined by fire. The alchemy of grief does not take away the pain, but it gives the pain a purpose. It turns the why me into what now. It takes the fragments of a broken heart and uses them to build a lighthouse. If you are lost in the fog of loss today, remember that your grief is not a dead end. It is an invitation to find a deeper way of living. Trust the silence. Trust the process. Your scars are the gold that shows where you have been mended. Your loss is the compass that will finally lead you home to yourself.